thought I'd take a moment to talk about how to build a suspended shelter and why it's very important when we tell you to tie down all the eyelets and what the parachute effect is. So as you can see over here, we've got a pretty basic setup. We've got a frame over here. We've put an industrial strength tarp over it. We haven't tied down all the eyelets on purpose. We've only tied down a handful of eyelets, and as you can see, the other eyelets are completely loose. So what happens now is that when the wind hits the tarp, it's creating a pressure point on those handful of eyelets that are tied down. What that creates is the load distribution is not even. It's basically being pinpointed on those handful of eyelets. This can create weak points on those eyelets because they've got a maximum strain they can withstand, beyond which they might pop out. So the parachute effect, what exactly is it and how does it impact the tarp? The parachute effect is when the wind hits the tarp from underneath and it makes a little mini parachute. How do you prevent it from happening? The best way to do that is to put ropes across the top of the tarp, length and widthwise. What you're essentially doing is when the wind hits it from underneath, it's not going to blow like a parachute, it's going to stay put. Why is fluttering bad for the tarp? Fluttering basically means when the wind's hitting the tarp, the material is smashing against the frame or whatever you tied it to. The reason that's bad for the tarp is because more the tarp flutters, the more weak points you're creating across the material of the tarp. To prevent that from happening, essentially, you got to remember to tie down all your eyelets and make sure there's no parachute effect occurring on the tarp. Water pooling on the tarp is just as bad as the parachute effect of the tarp. The water sitting on the tarp itself will never leak through because the tarps are completely waterproof. But the reason that is bad on the tarp is because it creates a lot of added weight and strain on the material and eyelets. If you think about it, 1 cubic meter of water equals to 1 ton of weight. That's how much weight is sitting on the tarp. To make sure that water doesn't pool on the tarp, ensure that your setup has a decline or an incline to let the water run off.